So we are here in front of the Bernina B35s. So Bernina came out with the new Bernina 335 just a couple months ago. So we're at the beginning of August. And there's also a 325, but when that one comes out, we'll talk about that one. But we want to compare number to number. So we've got the new and the old. This is still a brand new machine. So they're both brand new machines, but this is the outgoing discontinued, and this is what we currently now have. So at first look, you'll see they're quite different. So the biggest thing being the color touchscreen, which is the same user interface we have on all of our Berninas now, opposed to the very more pixelated LED screen, or LCD screen, I apologize. And the next thing, having them side-by-side comparison, the new 335 has more and brighter LED lights than the original one. Noticeable difference. The other thing is, so since we do have this color touchscreen, you'll notice whenever we change stitches, that you just see a number. So you have to relate that number to a stitch, either here on the keypad or here on the card. So now with the new model, the card is a thing of the past. The other thing that is completely different is the speed control. So here, if you've ever worked with a 3 or a 2 series, you've had this speed control here, but it's only controlled the speed or the maximum speed when using the push start button. Here, the speed control, just like on all of our other Berninas, controls the maximum speed when using your foot pedal as well. Aside from the obvious differences of the design being completely different, you've got softer, more rounded curves on the machine, opposed to the sharper edges, which they're not cutting sharp, but on the sharper edges. There are a few little minor things here and there that are different. So you have a metal uptake lever guard here, where here the machine actually sticks out to cover the uptake lever a little more, and there's no separate metal piece. It's just plastic, which just blends in with the machine. It really doesn't need to be metal to protect you or anything. The plastic cover does that beautifully. The other thing that's a big deal for sure is the pressure foot pressure. So now we have a 3 series that has a pressure foot pressure adjustment, because that wasn't found until we got up to the 4 series prior. They both have the same slide on table. If it's not the exact same, it's very similar. They both have the same hook system, the same CB bobbin, the metal CB bobbin with the metal CB bobbin hook and bobbin case. That is identical. They both can raise and lower the feed dogs. Here, it's on the side, well, on the front, where the old one, it's on the side, down here, which you can't really see. Same bobbin winder, so here I can wind the bobbin when the machine's running, or you don't have to press on the foot pedal. Same thing goes here. On the surface, that's about it. We no longer have the buttons here, like we have here, keypad, because it's all easily seen on the screen. So there's one thing as I'm looking at each machine that this machine has that this one doesn't have, is the secure button. So whenever I want to secure a stitch in place, either at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end, or wherever without using your reverse, is you can press the little secure, the little knot. It will appear on the screen, and it will, if you're sewing, it will stop stitching, and then it will secure in place and then stop altogether. So all the bigger differences, aside from what I just mentioned, is all in the screen. So here, just like this machine, it mentions or suggests what foot to use with whatever stitch you're using. But here I can tell it if I'm using a twin needle, if I'm using a different stitch plate. We don't have any of those security settings over here. So if I'm using a twin needle, a triple needle, a wing needle, I can tell it. And if there are any restrictions of what the machine can and cannot do, it will put those in play. On the side, we have our decorative stitches in different categories. Here, they're just 1 through 115, and then some alphabets. But now they're all listed here. It's very easy to save a stitch. So if you took a zigzag that you love, you made it narrower and you made it longer or shorter, and you love it, you can then save it to easily retrieve later. That's not something you can really easily do here. I don't think you can do it at all here, actually. I know we can save and create in combination mode, which I'll show you next on here, but it's very difficult because you're only looking at letters and numbers depending on what you're working with. Here you can see a whole visual. So for instance, if I wanted to do a name, I could come to, say, my alphabet. I can go to my combination mode, and I can easily program letters to create names, which are excellent for creating labels. And so I can easily see all that here. That you can do here. You can do that on this machine, but it's not very straightforward and it's difficult to see what you've done. But combination mode does exist, and that's what we see here, along with the alphabet like we see here. But it's not as easy, but definitely can be done. The other thing that we really love about our Bernina machines and our touchscreen is so when we are working with, say, a decorative stitch, we'll just say a straight stitch. So when we change that stitch, we see it change on the screen. Here we just have little dashes indicating what the stitch width is, what the stitch length is, and what the needle positions are, or needle position is. There's only one needle. But here we physically see it change on the screen. We physically see the exact size we can expect it to stitch because the resolution of the screen is nice and crisp, nice and high. We can get a very good representation of the size and the detail we'll get in a stitch, especially when we're looking at something more detailed, say like this little turtle. It's going to be a small little turtle, but if we make it longer, we can see him stretch out and we get a good idea how big he'll be when we stitch him out on our fabric. The other thing we have on our screen is the needle up, needle down. So here's where we can physically change and see or have it where the needle will stop up or the needle will stop down. We do have that here. And that would be a click of a button here. However, if I click this button, it only changes where the needle stops. Here I have the same icon, but when I click this button, it will physically bring the needle down or bring the needle up. I, again, can do that here, but I have to press and hold this button for it to bring the needle down or bring the needle up. That takes too long. So now we've got two buttons, like we do on all of our other machines. Here we're using the same button to do two different functions, so there's a lag time between which function we're using. The other thing that's wonderful on this machine is in the home button here. We have a number of different functions. We have settings we can go to change different settings, tutorial, creative consultant, and the eco mode button, or the echo mode. So tutorial is I come here and say I have questions on how to thread my bobbin in my bobbin case. So I can go to threading. I can go to threading the bobbin thread, and then it'll show me detailed videos. Well, not videos. This one doesn't have videos, but showing a picture of how to insert and the correct way to insert my metal bobbin in my metal bobbin case in the machine, because the thread does need to come off a certain way. Or if I have questions on lubricating the machine, it'll tell you and then show you where and how to lubricate your machine. Here I have to pull out the manual to see any of that. Here it's all built in. So that's a wonderful feature found in the home button. The other thing is a creative consultant. I can come here and say what fabric you're working with. Say I'm working with leather or vinyl. I can say, okay, leather or vinyl, and let's say I'm doing a zipper with vinyl or leather. Say zipper. It's going to tell me the needle size, the type of thread, what to set my tension to, which is up here, same as here, what stitch to use, and then what foot to use, which is the Teflon foot number 54. If I had the check mark, it's going to change those things for me. So it moved my needle position over. It increases stitch length, and it put foot number 54 in place. So it changes some of the things it can change, and then it recommends some of the things that it wants you to change. And they are just recommendations, but they are very helpful, especially if you're not familiar with the material you're working with and the technique you may be working with that material. Something else you have is a question mark button. So if you have a question about one of the icons you see on the screen, let's say we'll come here and say, okay, question, and what is this? It'll tell you what that is. So that's something that's new on the new Bernina 335. Otherwise, they both sew beautifully. They both are 5.5 millimeter. They both, to keep costs down, come with snap-on feet, but any additional feet that you purchase, say like this number 57, which is your quarter-inch foot with a guide. All these feet fit on the machine. You would just remove the whole shank, no screwdriver required, and then attach that full shank foot that you bought separately. Another thing that both of them have, and it's worth pointing out because it's a wonderful feature, is they both have the freehand system. Pickle's covering the one over here, so you can't see it. But the freehand system, it's a metal bar that comes out. This is one of the Bernina patents from decades ago. It's a wonderful feature, but it's a metal bar that comes out, and it's designed for you to use your right leg. And so when you push up against it, it will then lower my foot that's locked up in place here, and it will lower it, and then we can start sewing. Or if we have the needle stop in the down position, it will then allow me to move my leg over onto the bar and then lift that foot up just ever so slightly. However much pressure you apply will depend on that will determine how high the presser foot is raised, and then we can pivot our fabric. So the Bernina knee lift, or the Bernina freehand system, it opens the tension disc, raises the foot, and then lowers your feed dogs ever so slightly, so you can easily pull that fabric from underneath your sewing machine. So they both are equipped with the hardware inside the machine. The one thing, again, to keep the cost down on this series is they did not include the freehand system, because there are plenty of people out there who claim they don't need it or they don't want to use it. And so instead of including that into the machine and increasing the cost, they figure for the customers who do want to use it, they can purchase it separately. But for the customers who aren't going to use it, they're not paying for something that they don't need or don't want or don't think they want. And that's because they've never used it or don't know how to properly use it, because it's a wonderful, wonderful feature to have on any sewing machine. Aside from just a few other cosmetic things, that's pretty much it. The big differences between the new and the outgoing Bernina 335. However, the biggest thing is they're close to the same price. So there's a huge advantage to going for the new 335. I shouldn't say this because I still have a few of the older ones in my store, but the newer ones are very close to the same price as the older 335s. So if you're looking for a deal, I know I'll have a few good deals on the old 335s. So you have to get rid of them because we've got a lot of the new 335s coming in because they are going to be very, very popular. They only weigh 16 pounds. Actually, I think it's 16.7 pounds, which is about the same weight as 2 gallons of milk. I looked it up. To give you an idea how much they weigh, they are perfect travel machine, perfect first machine because it's a Bernina. It sews like nothing else, especially at this price range. It's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful machine. They're strong, they're robust, they've got metal components that are typically found that aren't typically found to be metal, especially at this price range, especially with the front-loading bobbin. It's just a strong machine that could bring you years and years, if not decades, of sewing. All right, well, I'm going to wrap it up there, or we're going to wrap it up there. And stay tuned or check out some of our other more in-depth videos working with the Bernina 335. And as always, happy sewing!